This need to be understood comes from when we were children, we always felt judged. If you don't feel heard, if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel understood, you just always feel like nothing's ever good enough, right? And so then that is what determines this need for us to be understood, because if they just understood me, then they would see what I see.
Okay, hi everybody. Today is a special treat. I am here with someone I have known for years who is part of my life. We leave each other long voice messages. I trained her. I've been in admiration of all her accomplishments. She is a fabulous person. So many of you probably follow her and are part of her community. Tracy Otsuka, welcome to the podcast. Okay, Tracy, I want to talk about your bio, and I want to talk about the fact that you have accomplished so much more than I even knew. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know this. So let me introduce Tracy. So she is a certified ADHD coach. She is an attorney. She is a host of the ADHD for Smartass Women podcast. She is an author of a book, ADHD for Smartass Women, and I have it right here. And this was Amazon's editor's best nonfiction book of 2024, which is a huge accomplishment. And over the past decade, she has empowered thousands of clients, including doctors, C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, to see their neurodivergence as a strength, not a weakness. She's leveraged her analytical skills from her time as lead counsel. This is something, Tracy, I did not know, for the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission to help clients boost productivity, improve finances, and save relationships and have happier lives. She is a sought-after, top-tier media consulting with Forbes, Health Central, the Gold Digger podcast. Thank you so much and welcome, Tracy.
Well, thank you. But you kind of exaggerated my success. I love that. I love that about you. ADHD for Smartass Women was one of Amazon editors' best books of 2024. Unfortunately, it wasn't the best book.
Okay, but I don't care. So this is how I tell stories, right? This is my ADHD, right? We go to extremes like the Billy Joel song.
Yeah.
I will tell a story now, and in the story, your success will grow.
I love
like
it.
Tonight, I'll be telling my family, Tracy was the person Amazon chose to save us and bring us to our own strength, to believe in ourselves. Like, it will grow, Tracy.
I love that about you.
So you have played a pivotal role, and I really mean this, in helping me with friendship skills for neurodivergent adults. Because when I was trying to sell the book, and a lot of people didn't understand or said things like, why can't you ADHD people just read books that are already written about friendship? And I was like, you left me these beautiful messages, and you were so supportive. And I hope I've been a fifth as supportive of your incredible book. And I'm just so grateful.
Oh, well, thank you. And yes, you have been, and I'm so grateful for our friendship. So thank you.
So, Tracy, I consider one of your biggest expertise women, ADHD women, and how ADHD shows up for us. And so that's one reason I wanted to have you on, not just because I love seeing you and we get to have fun together, which we did before we started, but I feel like a lot of women are being diagnosed later in life. And I feel like the way that ADHD is showing up is different. Can you just speak to like, why is this missed so much? Why are women not getting diagnosed? Because it kind of makes me bananas.
Yeah, well, it goes back to the fact that most of the studies have been done on white prepubescent boys, and it turns out that ADHD often, not always, but often looks different in girls. So 75% of us remain undiagnosed. And I think the big part is that we have 2 times the rate of inattention. So when you think of ADHD, the classic, or traditional, version of ADHD, you think of this annoying boy who's climbing up the walls and he is irritating everyone in his life. He talks back, he gets in fights, he's loud, obnoxious, and so guess what happens in school? He gets all the services. Versus the girls, and if they have 2 times the rate of inattention, the girls look more like absent-minded professors when they're women, but when they're girls, it's more like they're sitting in the back of the classroom and they're caught up in their thoughts, daydreaming, don't even remember that they're in class, let alone in school, let alone in what class they're in, right?
I mean, that was me. You're describing little Caroline.
And Caroline was not annoying at all. She didn't need teachers, constantly reprimanding her. The other students weren't telling her to be quiet. Well, they were me, though. I'm very hyperactive, and I was constantly talking. But
I feel like I talked enough that I did get on some people's nerves.
Okay. So what girls do, though, is, the boys get the services and they externalize their symptoms. They're moving around, they're annoying, versus the girls, they internalize them. So instead, they get diagnosed with anxiety and depression, which they might have, but it's usually or often ADHD underlies all that. So if you treat the ADHD, the anxiety and depression either goes away altogether or, it really subsides. I think the other difference is girls get diagnosed later or they start showing symptoms later. It's usually puberty because even though we have no studies, very few studies, what we have discovered is that estrogen modulates dopamine. So when are the times in a girl's and a woman's life when estrogen starts bouncing around? Puberty, pregnancy,
menopause,
postpartum, perimenopause, and menopause. So that is when we start to see a lot of symptoms. And, we have something that I call maturity onset ADHD, where you may have been just fine holding on, as a woman, appear to be very successful, and then all of a sudden perimenopause hits. And you don't even recognize who you are. And that would have been my version of ADHD. Whereas before I had so much confidence. So I learned early on that if I stayed in action and I achieved, I got a lot of accolades, and we tend to be people pleasers. And so what did I do? I achieved more and more. So no one would have ever thought she has ADHD. In fact, women today, I hear it every single day. They'll go to their doctor and ask about ADHD, and they'll be told, no, you don't have ADHD. You graduated from college. You have a family that's all together. You own your own home. I mean, you're in a successful career. They don't understand what ADHD looks like in women. And it can look like drivenness, because drivenness is a form of hyperactivity. So that and the interpersonal intuition, when I found out about interpersonal intuition, where you can just walk into a room and you can feel the energy and what is going on before anyone says anything. But when you say something, this kind of ties into friendship, people are looking at you like, oh, no, that's not true. Because either they don't see it or they don't want you to see it. So those two things is what I was like. My son was diagnosed at 12. And 8 months I did research about him until I was reading Ned Hallowell's book, Driven to Distraction, read it for the second time. I'm on the Stairmaster, and I'm like, holy crap, he got his ADHD from me. But, even though I'm so hyperactive, I still didn't see it because I was what they would call traditionally successful.
Yeah, and what I love about what you're saying, too, is I think there's a syndrome that I hear from women all the time. And I work with women, but not as many as you. Here's the syndrome, and little Caroline completely fit into this from what you're describing. Okay, so I was criticized so much for, why did you forget this? Why did you do this? My headmaster used to say, well, when you show up, you're so good, but sometimes you're not there. Where do you go, right? He even told my parents that, and my parents were like, we don't know where she goes. Do you want to tell us where she goes? We don't know either, right? So what happens, though? I would achieve. And for me, it was achievement on the stage, right? I wasn't as into academics. I mean, I did well academically, but I would achieve on the stage. I would get more parts. I would get more fanfare. and then the criticism gets to be less. And I always think this must be what happens with athletes, where we get these bloated athletes. And the reason we get them is because that's all anyone pays attention to. And then you get into this cycle, though, where you have to achieve. Well, you're not going to get a TED Talk every week.
Right.
Right? I mean, I've tried. It doesn't really work out. So, I think that's huge. And then the intuition piece, I just have to comment on this because it's so closely associated with a friendship. I have a massive thing about I want to be understood. And I think so many ADHD women do. But part of it comes from the fact that when I walk into a room, I can read it so well and I can feel that intuition. And so many times no one believed me, especially as a child. So I am constantly over-explaining because I want you to buy in, because I see what I see and I want you to see it. And I hear this from women all the time. All the time. And they'll say, you probably think I'm crazy. And I'm like, oh no, I get it. Tell me about that. Like, the doubting of people is such a theme in your book where you just talk about it, and I love it.
Well, I call them mental mindfields. And there's 10 of them, but they're like rejection, sensitive dysphoria. Feeling judged is where it all starts. And so I was just, going to comment that when you're talking about this need to be understood comes from when we were children. We always felt judged. So if you don't feel heard, if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel understood, you just always feel like nothing's ever good enough, right? And so then that is what determines this need for us to be understood, because if they just understood me, then they would see what I see. So,
100%.
All of these mental minefields, it leads to perfectionism, right? If I can be perfect, then I'll be above reproach. Nobody will be able to criticize me. And then, of course, then we overthink and we second guess. And the key there, though, is none of these things, there's 10 of these mental minefields, none of them live in isolation. They all hold each other up like the legs of a table, which I always say built on shame and self-doubt. So I had to record something in Santa Barbara. It was with a major recording company who had asked me to create some trainings for them. And I had worked with a producer months in advance. I had written all the scripts. What I tend to do, because of all of the things we're talking about, is I am an over-preparer, right?
Oh, right here with you. Right here with you.
I cannot wing anything. And so
I don't think I've ever winged anything in my life, Tracy. I'm not even kidding. It would feel, it just also is the way I was brought up. I was brought up that you don't wing things, right? Yeah. Like it was my whole indoctrination,
I winged one thing that I can remember in my life. And that was, we had to do book reports. This was 8th grade. This is when now I know, that was ADHD. I had the best memory, Caroline. I was the lead, not only in the English plays and musicals and things like that, but the German ones, because we would go to German school as well. My mother was
Oh my
German.
Goodness.
I could memorize anything. And in 8th grade, I decided to read this book about football. Okay, I hate football. I still don't know, where's the ball? People are always telling me to be quiet because I'm annoying when it comes to football because I don't understand the game. So my book report was this book on football, but I used to be so good at everything that I didn't necessarily need to read the whole book. And so
totally.
I faked it. I didn't read the whole book. And there was that was the one time where I got up there, Caroline, I couldn't remember anything. And I always thought it was, because you kind of cheated and you didn't read the whole book. But now I know that it was ADHD. That was when it first reared its head. And I still remember Mrs. Schumacher on my paper, and I was used to getting straight A's all the time. She wrote, I don't even remember what grade I got, but I'm sure it wasn't an A. She wrote, disturbed speaker.
Oh my God.
And so that is why I don't wing anything. So I'm in Santa Barbara. I record everything, and all they can do is talk about, oh my God, you're so good on camera, you're blah, blah, blah. I mean, I was like feeling so great. And so then they turned to me and they said, you did such a great job. How about if you record an impromptu training for us?
Oh no!
10 things everyone should know about ADHD. Caroline, I have 350 some odd podcasts. I've written a book about ADHD. I've worked with thousands of women.
This book.
Oh my God. I sucked so bad. And even worse, like I couldn't have a teleprompter or anything with any kind of notes. And I had to record it on, they had an iPhone there. And it had to be 2 minutes long, no longer. There had to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. I was so bad and I was so incredibly embarrassed. And so the way I liken it was like a runway. This is what my brain needs. I'm like a plane, you know? Even like first thing in the morning, I have to get my plane off the runway, dopamine. And then once I get it up just a little bit, then I can go, right? But if you have people who every 2 minutes they're stopping you, I mean, I couldn't get off the runway. It was so bad. And so instead of focusing on what I was supposed to do, mental mindfields, right? I'm overthinking, I'm perfectionistic, I'm feeling judged, I'm needing to explain myself. All those table legs were propping each other up. And it really forced me to confront every ADHD pitfall that I coach women on all the time. And this is something I've seen in executives, in best-selling authors, in top attorneys, in 8-figure business owners, even in national news anchors. And it reminded me that these patterns don't disappear with success, right? They are baked into our ADHD experience. But the deal is that table can only stand because we keep reinforcing it. So the moment we start kicking out even one or two of the legs, then the whole thing collapses. And the truth of it is I knew better. I am not a winger. Why didn't I just say, you know what? I just don't work that way. You may think I'm brilliant here, but this is not how my brain works. But inside me, I was thinking, well, maybe I can do it this time. You know, I had such 2 days we've been recording and I've done so well.
Well, and also there is that, I'm not accusing you of being a people pleaser because the Tracy I know is not a people pleaser, but there is still that child inside you who wants to, and it's a very difficult situation that they put you in. You want to do well. You want to do whatever. You're also like, I've written a book. I have all these podcasts. I can pull it out. I can do it. And you know what? The other thing I'm hearing that I want to just highlight for those listening is we know that pressure shuts the ADHD brain down. And that was pressure for you. For someone else, they might be a winger and they might be like, here I go, da-da-da, doesn't matter, I can do it. But for someone else, it is too much pressure, and pressure's all relative. That's the other thing I was hearing when I was listening to the story. I was thinking, pressure shuts us down, and they put you under so much pressure. And that's how I felt when I recorded the audiobook of Why Will No One Play With Me. I am dyslexic, and so reading aloud is not something I enjoy doing. I don't want to ever read aloud. Even when I read a case study, when I train coaches. It comes from
school, right?
It comes from school and being forced to go to the front of the room and read, which I'm an 80s child. So there was no like, gee, why don't we not do this to Caroline, right? And so and luckily the producer was so nice and he said, this is edited. Like you can mess up and it doesn't matter. And he sometimes would let me like rehearse where I'd read a big long thing and then say, okay, now let's go, rather than like it's just cold. I think it's so important, Tracy, too, for people to hear that someone like you who is so accomplished that the ADHD traits still show up. I think it's really important. I'm serious, because I think people don't realize, and they have that stool and they think it's just them.
Yep. Well, they absolutely do, right? We meet women like this all the time. And so no wonder you can't get out of your own way if you think that, well, there is something wrong with my brain. No, your brain is perfect the way it is. Just figure out how it works.
Absolutely. So I have this question though about the later diagnosis and all this shame and all of it that builds up, because there's such a thing of being misunderstood. There's such a thing of everything has been reframed in such a negative light. Instead of saying, you know, my ADHD brain needs this, people have painted it in this negative light. And now we go to try to have relationships, friendships. And I just want to know, how do you think being misunderstood affects women's friendships?
Well, I think if you constantly feel like people are misreading you, obviously it triggers RSD. We know that, right? Rejection sensitive dysphoria. And so if you constantly feel like you're being misread, wouldn't that naturally make you more defensive, or you just withdraw altogether? So you're not being who you really are. And if people can't get that from you, they're always going to, and we've all had friends like that, right? Where there was always like there was something wrong. And now as grown-ups, and now as women who study all this, right? What I see is that they were inauthentic to who they were. They were trying to be who everyone else wanted them to be, instead of just getting comfortable with who they are, let the chips fall where they fall. And the only way you're going to be able to find your people is that your people know that you're their people, right? And that is not going to happen if you're masking and you're being who you really are not. And really, that's the goal, is in friendships, I want to be with people who love and appreciate me exactly the way I am. Doesn't mean I won't mess up at times, right? But as long as there's kindness and there's honesty and integrity, like I am just perfect the way I am. So I don't need to waste time and energy trying to get other people to like me, because there are people who are not going to like me. And I think that is really an ADHD thing, because I believe we are meant to stand out in our area of brilliance. We really struggled to be one of a group, so we can be kind of annoying in the wrong groups, because we always want to change things. We want to make them better. We talk out of turn. We can be loud. We want to control, you know? So there are people who are just not going to want to be with someone like me, because I am not good at just kind of fitting in and playing small. It's just not who I am.
And, you know, I talk to my clients about this all the time. I don't want you to be small. I don't want you to fold yourself in half. I don't want you to try to take up less space. And because think of, you know, when someone says to me, I've been just trying to take up less space, I always reflect it back to them, because I'm like, that's sort of sick. Like, think about it. You're trying to squish yourself into the corner of the room.
Yeah.
I have so many clients who don't add to conversations, and then they get like really rusty with conversation, not because they don't have things to add, but because they've come to a habit, and I think especially women, of not speaking because they were told that they were too much or too boisterous or too whatever. And so they try to shrink themselves. When I love your perspective, which is like, we're not meant to shrink.
No, and everybody's not meant to like us, just like we're not meant. I mean, there are people I can't stand. It's hard for me to be in a room and keep my mouth shut, you know? So what if there's nothing wrong with them and there's nothing wrong with you? You just have different values, different interests, different brains, so go find your people.